I can tell you the exact minute last December when I realized my place in the family had shifted from daughter to footnote. It wasn't a dramatic moment, not then no slamming doors or shattering glass. It was a Tuesday early evening, a sky the color of bruised plums pressing against the windows of my little bookshop cafe. The bell above the door tinkled, weakly as the final customer, a grad student from the college, left with a paper bag of gingerbread biscotti and a used copy of The Night Before Christmas for her thesis on holiday folklore. I wiped down tables, murmuring to myself the way I do when the silence starts to feel like a mouth swallowing the room. "Another day," I said, folding a dish towel. "Another almond milk latte." Above me, the twinkle lights blinked with a drowsy rhythm, casting soft halos along the shelves. The shop smelled like cinnamon, nutmeg, old paper. I breathed it all in like prayer. This had been my dream, tiny, stubborn, paid for in long hours and baked fingers, half bookstore, half cafe, wholly mine. My phone buzzed against the counter. I dried my hands on my apron and glanced at the screen. A family group text? I braced myself the way you do before biting into something you know has a stray clove hidden inside. "Bianca, Christmas dinner theme is Nordic chic this year. Think white on white, glass, spruce, minimalist. No tacky reds or golds. I'm hosting. 6 p.m. Sharp same as always. Nico, what's Nordic chic? Do I have to wear reindeer? Bianca, lol, Nico. It's a vibe. Dress code, winter whites. Mom, lovely darling. I have those mercury glass votives. We can use them. Dad, tell me what to bring. Aunt Regina, I'll do the salmon gravlax. Perfect for the theme. Cousin Liv. I have a white sweater. I knew it would have its day. I scrolled, scanning for the tag with my name Mara, where Bianca would inevitably tell me to bring something simple, like napkins. As if napkins were my great family contribution. It wasn't that she meant to be cruel. Bianca was curated. She lived life like a mood board, pinned to a wall you never touched because the edges might smudge the aesthetic. She was the elder sister, the sunbeam girl. Her hair arranged, her nails glossy, her sentences clean as a showroom. Me, I was flower dusted. I smelled like cardamom. I let my hair do what it wanted, and I laughed with my whole body. Our mother once said I came into the world sideways. My father called me our little detour. They loved me, but in that distracted way, people love things that don't quite fit the center of their lives. The group chat pinged again. Bianca? Oh, and everyone please remember to RSVP so I can finalize the seating plan by Thursday. Kisses. I typed, erased, typed again. What would you like me to bring? Felt too needy. I'll bring dessert felt like offering the sun to a girl already tanning on a rooftop. Instead, I closed the app and put the phone face down. The bell over the door rang again, and a brisk little woman stepped in, one of my regulars. The one who always wore a fedora even when the weather begged for a knit cap. "Long day, Mara?" she asked. "A bit," I said. "We're doing pierogi this week." Trying to channel my Nona's magic. She smiled, buying two. Holidays are tricky. They press on old bruises. "They do," I said, and we both knew there wasn't more to say about it. She gathered her pierogi, tipped an imaginary hat, and went out into the early dark. I should tell you about my grandmother because she is the ghost in every room of this story. Nona Sophia came to this town in 1967 with a suitcase full of aprons and a recipe book wrapped in waxed paper. The recipes weren't exact. They were more like letters to the future. Add flour until it holds your heart. Stir until it smells like the memory of your mother. We teased her about it when we were old enough to measure, but the truth is, those recipes rescued us. They held every Christmas we had ever loved inside them like a secret. When I was 8, Nona pulled a wooden stool beside the high butcher block in her kitchen and said, "Stand, watch." She showed me how to fold dough over ricotta, how to listen for the exact sigh of oil when it's ready for the sufganiat, how to view a feast not as performance but as welcome. "Hospitality," she told me, tapping my sternum with a floury finger, "is not plates and forks. It is this. It is your chest open." Bianca hated the mess. She cried when powdered sugar dusted her black leggings. She learned to arrange flowers in silent, precise arcs while I learned to smile with my hands. When Nona died 2 years ago, her spice cabinet came to me along with a small wooden box sealed with brass hinges. The box didn't open easily. It squeaked like an old violin. Inside was a recipe book, the waxed paper frayed like a snowdrift at the edges, and a note in Nona's careful looping script. For Mara, who knows the difference between feeding and impressing. I kept the note in my pocket for weeks, the paper softening with the oils from my skin. Sometimes, alone in bed, I pressed it over my heart like a compress. The trouble in our family is that nothing was ever really about the thing it seemed to be about. Christmas dinner wasn't dinner. It was the annual report card for your life. What are you wearing? How is your job? Are you still with him? Are you winning? Are you thin? Are you certain in your certainty? The year I reopened the bookstore that had been shuttered for 5 years and added a cafe to keep the lights on. My mother stood in my shop, turning in a slow, appraising circle like a realtor showing a property to a client. "It's sweet," she said. "The way people say a baby is cute when they'd rather say it looks like a potato. You know, Bianca's partner's firm offered her a bonus this year? She's moving into a bigger place." "I'm happy for her," I said, and I meant it. Bianca was never the enemy. It's hard to hate a sunbeam. You blame the window. "We just want to make sure you're stable," Mom continued, lowering her voice for the last word like it was an indecent thing to be overheard. "It's a lot of work. This cafe dream, it's paying for itself," I said. "I'm okay." She smiled, the small, strained version. The face you use when you're not convinced, but you've decided to be gracious about it. "Of course, dear." Nico, at least, remained Switzerland. He was younger by 4 years and lived in a series of apartments that all had the same blue couch. He loved guitars and could fix a dripping faucet with a butter knife. "You're the only one who knows how to make Nona's orange almond cookies without turning them into bricks," he told me once, licking sugar from his thumb. "I'm Timara until death." "You only say that because I pay you in pastries to change my light bulbs," I said. "The perks, sis. The perks." I was in the back room counting sugar packets that Tuesday when my phone buzzed again. A separate thread, Bianca. "Hey. Sorry, forgot to message you separately. For Christmas, I think it might be best if we keep things streamlined this year. The guest list is kind of tight because space is tight and I'm trying to create a certain flow. You know how chaotic it can get? I'll fill you in over coffee soon." I stared at the screen as if the light would rearrange itself into a different sentence if I glared hard enough. "Keep things streamlined. The guest list is tight. You are not invited to Christmas dinner." I felt the wordless thud of it like a misstep on the stairs. For a second, I thought I might laugh. Then I thought I might throw the phone against the wall. In the end, I did neither. I placed it carefully on the table and walked to the sink. I turned on the cold water and pressed my wrists under it, figure skating my breath back into something steady. "Okay," I said to the empty room. "Okay." I waited to feel the old shame bloom, the kind I'd learned when I was 10 and my science fair volcano dribbled instead of erupted. And everyone clucked sympathetically while Bianca's solar system spun without a single wobble. I waited to feel small. It didn't come. What came instead was something clean and bright and cold. Like the air when you open a freezer. Clarity then. Just as quickly, a low burn of anger. I texted Nico. "Did you get Bianca's note?" He responded with a string of question marks. "Then, what note?" I sent him a screenshot. There was a pause, then the typing bubbles, then nothing, then more bubbles, then, "Are you kidding me? I'm calling her." "Don't," I typed. "Please, not yet." "Mara, I mean it." Let me think." I closed the shop early, the sign on the door flipping to "Sorry" were closed with a soft clack. Outside, the town was already hung in its holiday costume, garlands strung over Main Street, the giant pine in the square blinking like a patient machine. Children in puffy coats squeaked across the ice rink. Somewhere, a trumpet played the first few uncertain notes of Silent Night, then faltered. My feet took me to the cemetery without asking, the way you sometimes find yourself at your own old front door when you're lost. The snow there had drifted a little deeper against the headstones. I brushed it from Nona's name with my glove and sat on the low wall, tucking my hands into my sleeves. They didn't invite me, I told the stone. To Christmas? Your Christmas. A gust skated across the hill. I could almost hear her laugh, the soft, ragged one like torn silk. Who hosts a Christmas without inviting the one who feeds them? I do not want to be bitter, I said, but my voice was brittle. I don't want to be the heroine of a petty story. Then don't be, her voice said in the quiet interior of my mind, as plain as if she were beside me. Be the heroine of your own story. Different thing entirely. I watched my breath pluming. The sky smeared itself darker. You're not helpful, I muttered. But I smiled when I said it. By the time I headed home, I had an idea floating around the edges of my anger like a small silver fish. An idea that smelled like orange peel and almonds and wood smoke. I didn't hold it tight yet. I let it swim. Back at my building's second floor walk up above, the hardware store of fine powder of flour dusted my kitchen like first snow within an hour. I opened Nona's box and flattened the wax paper notebook on the counter, though I didn't need to read it to know the recipe by now. Orange almond crescents rolled in sugar while still warm so the crystals melt into the crust like stars. I zested 2 oranges, breathed in their sunlight, and let my hands work without thinking. While the cookies baked, I made tea and called my mother. I told myself I was calm. The first words that came out of my mouth made that a lie. She didn't invite me. Mom inhaled sharply on the other end. Mara, I was going to call you. Were you? Bianca thought. Well, she thought it might be a lot for you this year. With the shop. You're so busy. You always say you're tired. I always say I'm tired because I'm always working. That's not a desire to be excluded. She didn't want you to feel excluded. I laughed, a sound like something polished to a razor. How does one accidentally uninvite a sister from Christmas and expect her not to feel excluded? Silence on her end. Then Bianca's place is small. The table only seats 8, and she's trying to keep the aesthetic she's working so hard. You know, she carries so much. And what do I carry, Mom? I set my tea down harder than I meant to. It sloshed onto the counter. Do you even hear yourself? Mara, please don't be dramatic. There it was, the old slap. Not angry exactly. Disciplining, my mother rarely yelled. She cut with tidy lines. Don't be dramatic. As if feelings were ingredients you could omit if they didn't suit the recipe. Fine, I said. I won't be dramatic. I'll be precise. Bianca did not invite me to Christmas dinner with my family. Is that factual or not? Another pause. When she spoke, her voice was softer. It is factual. I'm sorry you're hurt. That wasn't the intention. Maybe not. But it is the effect. I let the words sit between us like an untied knot. I won't come, obviously. I wouldn't want to ruin the aesthetic. Mara, I have to take cookies out of the oven. Mom, bye. I hung up before I could soften, before I could be the one who made it easier for everyone else to live with what they'd done. The oven passed from golden to perfect to one more minute, that dangerous limbo where I always think I can achieve the platonic ideal and instead lose it. I rescued the tray just in time. Steam rose in fragrant curls. I rolled each crescent in sugar and placed them on a wire rack. You're little moons, I told them. We are all little moons. Midnight came and went. I sat on the couch with my bare feet tucked beneath me, the notebook open on my lap. Tucked into the final pages, I found the envelope I'd almost forgotten. Cream paper. My name in Nona's hand, and a small brass key taped to the flap. She'd given it to me the week before she died, touching my cheek with the back of her fingers like old women do. Not for now, she'd said. For when now feels like not enough. It had been 2 years and now had often felt like not enough, but I hadn't opened it. I told myself I was waiting for the correct sadness, the perfect ceremony. Or maybe I was afraid of the kind of truth an old woman might leave behind, a truth that rearranged the furniture of your life. I slipped the key free and turned the envelope in my hands. Then I tucked it back into the book. Not yet. The little fish of my idea swam closer. I could feel the movement of it at the edges of my skin. But I wouldn't chase it. I would let it grow. The next morning, I turned the front chalkboard sign at the shop to Holiday Story Hour. This Friday, hot cocoa and cookies, and beneath that I wrote, as if it were an afterthought, Open House Christmas Eve. 5 to 10 p.m. Soup, bread, anyone welcome. It wasn't a plan so much as a posture, a way of asking the town a question and seeing how it answered. You're working Christmas Eve. Nico asked when he wandered in later, shrugging snow off his jacket. He kissed my hair. You've got my texts? Mom is steamed. I got them. I poured him coffee. And yes, I'm open Christmas Eve and open-hearted. Bring whomever. His face did that thing where the bottom lip juts slightly, his thinking face. You're not, are you? Is this revenge? Against who? The concept of minimalist spruce. I shrugged. It's just soup. What kind of soup? Nona's, chickpea, and rosemary. And the tomato basil she made when she forgave you for breaking her sugar bowl. Hey, he said, sheepish. You'll always remember the absolutions. I keep them in a box, I said, tapping my chest. He took a sip. If Bianca finds out you're hosting something, I'm not hosting anything, I said. I run a public shop. On Christmas Eve, my public shop will be public. He stared at me for a long beat, then laughed softly. You're dangerous when you're calm. I'm almost never calm. I know, he said. That's why it's scary. He hung around until closing, and then we walked together down Main Street, our boots squeaking in the dry cold. Nico stopped suddenly, squinting at the big town pine. Do you think a person can belong to a place, he asked, more than a family? Yes, I said too quickly. Then, slower. Sometimes a place is more honest. Bianca is still wrong, he muttered. I don't care how many white napkins she irons. She is. I inhaled the resin air. But she's also lonely under the glitter, I think. What are you going to do? Feed people, I said. It's the only thing I've ever known what to do. 2 days later, a rumor reached me disguised as small talk. Mrs. Klein from the florist leaned over the counter and whispered, Don't tell anyone I told you, but Bianca's rented glass chargers. Real ones, from the fancy place in the city. She showed me her seating chart. It's like a battle plan. She looked around theatrically. It says family only, no plus ones. I felt a little click in my chest, like the lid on a box. Family only, I repeated. Good to know. The day after that, a mother stopped by the shop with a shopping bag filled with 2 white pillar candles and a rectangle of faux fur. For your window display, she said, placing them with ceremonial care on the counter. It could use cohesion. Hi, Mom, I said. It's good to see you, too. She set her jaw. I don't want you to think Bianca is trying to hurt you. I don't, I said. I think Bianca is trying to curate the version of Christmas where her life is an ad for itself. It used to work because Nona's food made it feel like love. Without that, it's just nice things. Mara, what? You could apologize, you know. Smooth things. Make it easy. For what would I be apologizing? For making everyone so. She paused, choosing her word. So aware. I laughed before I could stop myself. I'm not a scent diffuser, Mom. My job is not to mist serenity over your discomfort. Her eyes flashed. For a second, I saw the girl she had been before life dried her out and turned her into the kind of woman who said cohesion about a window display. Then it was gone, tucked away into the drawer where she kept her soft parts. She pressed her lips together and picked up her bag of candles. We'll see you. Well, we'll talk after the holiday. She looked as if she might touch my arm, then decided against it and left without the bell even bothering to ring. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up and padded to the kitchen. I opened the envelope. The paper crackled in the quiet. Inside was another note short, almost brusque, for Nona. If you ever feel outside, go to the place where you began and look up. The brass key glinted in the light. The place where I began, I murmured. The house? The shop? The church? The hospital where I was born had been demolished in '98 and turned into condos called the Manger. I almost laughed. Great clue, Nona. But something in me, some small compass, needed to lean toward our old house, the one my parents had sold last spring. I could see it even with my eyes closed. Blue shutters, crooked fence. A kitchen window that steamed on winter afternoons like a kettle with a secret. The house sat 3 blocks from the square, the kind of easy walk that grows into a habit. The next morning, I went. The new owners were a young couple with a toddler whose cheeks looked like fresh rolls. Their front walk wasn't shoveled yet, so my boots pressed neat crescents into the powder. I stood on the sidewalk for a long minute, my breath clouding before me, before I tilted my head back and looked up. There it was. I exhaled a laugh that bent into a sob. Above the kitchen window, hidden by the eaves, was the crawl space vent I had used to peer through as a child when I played hide-and-seek with Nico. The vent had a rusted latch. A latch the size of Yisa's small brass key. I must have looked crazed standing there squinting at someone. Elsa's house like a bird watcher. I didn't try the key. I wasn't going to break into a stranger's crawl space. But I understood then what Nona's note meant. If you ever feel outside, go to the place where you began and look up. It was quite literally an instruction. But it was also a metaphor, a dare. Find the higher view, Mara. If they seat you at the wrong table, build a balcony. I walked back to the shop lighter than I'd felt since Tuesday. I made a list. Baguettes, rosemary, chickpeas, tomatoes, garlic, cream. I wrote music in capital letters and texted a local cellist who sometimes busked outside my door. I drew a map of my little space and schemed where we could tuck extra chairs. I rolled butcher paper onto the counter and wrote in huge hand-lettered script, "Open Hearts Supper Christmas Eve. Everyone welcome." I taped it in the window. People read it and smiled. A few stepped inside just to squeeze my hand. "You'll be swamped," Mrs. Klein warned. "Everyone loves free food." "It's not free," I said. "It's paid for already in sad years. I have a credit to spend." The afternoon before Christmas Eve, I saw Bianca in the square. Her hair swirled into a chignon that made her neck look like the stem of a glass. She wore a white coat that could only be worn by someone who had never spilled espresso in her life. She waved when she caught my eye, then hesitated, then approached. "Mara," she said with a bright, brittle smile. "You look cozy. You look Nordic chic," I said. She laughed, a chirp that bounced prettily against the shop windows. I wanted to make sure there are no hard feelings. "There are very hard feelings," I said calmly, "but I carry them carefully." Her smile flickered. "I didn't think you'd even want to come. These things stress you out. The fuss." "The family," I said. "The aesthetic," she said, quick. "And the expectations." "I don't mind the expectations," I said. "I mind the grade." She looked confused. For a second, I almost reached out and touched her cheek the way Mom never did to make contact with the human under the gloss. Instead, I nodded toward the sign in my window. "I'm working Christmas Eve. Open house. Soup and bread." Her eyes scanned the letters. I watched the math click in her head the way you can watch a child adding on their fingers. "People will show up," she said. "You'll have strays." "I like strays," I said. "I'm one." She flinched almost imperceptibly. "You're not a stray, Mara. You're just different." "I know." I met her eyes. "That's the first true thing you've said to me all week." She pressed her lips together. "You could still come Christmas Day," she said, as if she were offering a consolation prize. "After we eat? For dessert." I let the silence stretch until it was long enough to tie a ribbon around. "I'll be here," I said, finally. "Feeding anyone who's hungry." I paused. "Including you." Bianca's face twitched something like hurt, something like relief, something like anger that I refused to fit into the outline she'd drawn. "Don't be righteous," she said softly. "I'm just being me." "Right?" she said, and turned before I could see her eyes do whatever they were going to do next. That night I steeped rosemary in warm oil and roasted tomatoes until they blistered. The shop glowed. I lined up bowls like little planets waiting to be named. I could hear the town humming through the windows, the sound of people choosing. The sound of people deciding what kind of holiday they would have this year. I felt for the first time in days something like quiet bloom in the center of me. Not surrender, not triumph, just readiness. I didn't know then that by the end of Christmas Eve, the door to my small, flower-dusted life would open and keep opening, and that the choice I made to throw a tablecloth over a handful of old hurts would turn into something enormous, that the people who weren't supposed to come would come, and the people who were supposed to be someplace else would leave that someplace else to be with me. I didn't know that my little sign would be the first domino to fall, the one that would make the whole carefully curated display across town wobble. I only knew that I wouldn't be at Bianca's table because there wasn't a seat for me, and that in the absence of one, I had built a table of my own. I had lit the candles. I had set out the bowls. I had cracked open my chest. Tomorrow, I set into the quiet shop, turning the open sign so it faced the street even though it was full dark. Tomorrow, we feed whoever comes. And because old habits die hard. It's because the part of me that is still 8 and standing on a stool in Nona's kitchen needs reassurance. I pulled the brass key from my pocket and set it beside the register where I could see it catch the light. For when now feels like not enough, my grandmother had written, now, I told her, as if she could hear me through the ceiling. Through the years, through the honest, hungry air is finally enough. I didn't expect the hurt to come in layers. At first, it was just the blunt cut of being left out, like a door shutting in my face. But Christmas has a way of stretching pain, of making it echo in everything that carols on the radio. The scent of pine in the grocery store, even the way strangers hurry home with their bags full of gifts. Each reminder pressed against the bruise, spreading it. Christmas Eve at the shop should have been a distraction, and in a way it was. People came. More people than I expected. The little bell over the door never seemed to rest. My chalkboard promise of soup and bread. Everyone welcome pulled in townsfolk. The curious, the lonely, even families who couldn't afford the glitter of restaurant dinners. The air was thick with warmth. Laughter, the sound of spoons clinking. Someone started playing guitar in the corner. And then the cellist I had invited arrived, her bow-carving beauty into the air. I floated among them, ladling chickpea soup, slicing bread, refilling cocoa mugs. My apron dusted with flour and rosemary sprigs. It was good, so good that for a few hours I forgot what I was missing. I forgot that, across town, my family was gathering under Bianca's chandelier. Their clothes pristine and white, their voices raised in the brittle cheer of curated festivity. But as midnight neared, when the crowd began to thin and the last of the cocoa cooled, the emptiness crept back in. I locked the shop door, blew out the candles, and sat alone at a table sticky with crumbs. It was quiet now, too quiet. That was when my phone buzzed. A photo from Nico. At first, I thought it was an accident. But no, it was deliberate. A shot of Bianca's table, a long white cloth, glass chargers, silver cutlery gleaming. Everyone in winter whites, glasses lifted in a toast. My parents, smiling, Bianca radiant in her icy perfection. Even Aunt Regina and Cousin Liv were there, faces glowing in the candlelight. And in the middle of it all, the one empty chair. Not an accident, not forgotten, just empty. The caption from Nico read, "Wish you were here." I swallowed hard. I wanted to throw the phone. I wanted to scream. Instead, I zoomed in on the photo, tracing the outline of their faces. I whispered each name like a curse and a prayer. Mom, Dad, Bianca, Nico, Liv, Regina. My voice cracked on my own name, unspoken, absent. Christmas morning arrived with cruel cheer. The shop was closed, the streets quiet. I tried to sleep, but by afternoon I found myself walking, almost against my will, toward Bianca's house. The sky was white with heavy snow clouds. I told myself I just wanted to see the outside decorations, the perfect minimalist display she no doubt arranged. When I reached her street, I slowed. Cars lined the curb. I could hear music and laughter spilling from behind the frosted windows. Through the lace of curtains, I caught glimpses. Bianca, her hair gleaming under chandelier light. Dad carving a roast with ceremonial precision. Mom arranging crystal glasses. And then, through the window, I saw it. On the sideboard Nonet's serving platter. The antique one with hand-painted vines around the rim. The one she'd promised to me when I was 12 because I had the hands of a feeder. It wasn't just being used. It was loaded with the dessert Bianca had bought from some upscale patisserie. Store-bought macarons neatly arranged on my grandmother's plate, like jewels placed in the wrong crown. My throat closed. Rage, grief, humiliation, all of it tangled. Then the worst part, the laughter. A ripple of it so loud I heard it through the glass. And then Bianca, raising her glass, saying something I couldn't make out, but I knew, somehow, it was about me. Because just then, Mom leaned toward Aunt Regina, covering her mouth as she whispered something. They laughed harder. Bianca tossed her head back, triumphant. I stood in the snow like a ghost outside my own life. My boots sank deeper, the cold seeping in. I wanted to run. I wanted to burst through the door and shout. But my legs wouldn't move. Instead, I turned away. I didn't notice the neighbor's dog barking at me, or the couple pulling their child along in a sled. I walked back to my shop in a fog, every step heavier. By the time I got there, tears had blurred the world. I unlocked the door and went inside, the scent of rosemary still lingering. I sat in the dark, staring at the brass key on the counter. My humiliation was complete. First excluded, then mocked, then robbed of the one heirloom that tied me to Nona. I pressed my hands flat against the counter, whispering to the empty shop, "They think I'm nothing. They think I don't belong. They think they can erase me." The silence answered back with only the hum of the heater. But beneath that humiliation, under the ache of it, something shifted. The little silver fish of my idea was no longer swimming. It was circling fast, insistent. I knew then what I had to do. I woke on December 26th with the hollow ache of a hangover. Though I hadn't touched a drop of alcohol. My hangover was humiliation, disappointment, and the sharp sting of betrayal. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the image of my family around Bianca's table, their laughter, the empty chair. Nona's platter desecrated by store-bought macarons. Enough, I whispered into the quiet. The word carried like a stone across water, rippling through me. I got up, dressed, and walked to the shop. The snow had piled high overnight, making the whole street look muffled, like a world inside cotton. When I unlocked the cafe, the familiar scent of paper, sugar, and coffee steadied me. On the counter, the brass key caught the pale morning light. For when now feels like not enough. I picked it up, weighing it in my palm. Yesterday had proven it. Now was certainly not enough. I needed answers. That note about the place where you began had been tugging at me. I'd gone to the old family house, seen the crawl space vent, but hadn't dared try the key. But today felt different. The sting of exclusion had burned away my hesitation. I locked the shop again and walked briskly toward the old house. The couple who owned it were out shoveling their walkway, their toddler giggling in a snowsuit. I smiled as politely as I could, my heart pounding, and pretended to admire their new wreath. When their backs turned, I slipped to the side of the house. My boots crunched softly as I reached the crawlspace vent. The latch was rusty but intact. With trembling hands, I slid the brass key into the lock. It turned. The metal groaned as I pulled the vent open. Inside was a narrow ledge, and sitting on it, wrapped in oilcloth, was a small wooden box no bigger than a loaf of bread. My breath caught. I pulled it out carefully, brushing away dust. The box bore Nona's initials, S.C. Sophia Conti. For a long moment, I just held it, stunned. Then I tucked it into my coat and hurried away before anyone could see. Back at the shop, I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and set the box on the counter. My fingers trembled as I undid the oilcloth and opened it. Inside were folded papers, brittle with age. Recipes, yes, but also letters. The first one I unfolded made my knees weak. To my granddaughter Mara, if you are reading this, it means the family has lost its way. I left this for you because I know you will understand. This is not just food. This is legacy. The cafe, the recipes, they are meant for you. Your mother and sister, they seek appearances. But you, cara mia, you carry my true inheritance. Feed them if you must, forgive them if you can. But never let them take this from you. I pressed the page to my chest, tears springing hot to my eyes. Nona had known. She'd seen me. The second paper was more shocking. The deed to a plot of land small, but in the heart of town. Attached was a receipt. Nona had purchased it decades ago, intending it for a bakery. At the bottom of the deed, in her careful script, were the words for Mara: "Build what you dream." My head spun. My family didn't know. They couldn't know. Because if they had, Bianca would have flaunted it, Mom would have controlled it, Dad would have turned it into some investment. But Nona had hidden it for me. I sat at the counter for what felt like hours, rereading the letters, the deed, the recipes. My humiliation from the night before began to twist into something else, something sharper. They had excluded me, mocked me, stolen Nona's platter. But what they didn't know was that I held the true heart of Nona's legacy. And then my phone buzzed. It was Nico. "Can we talk?" I told him to come to the shop. When he arrived, snow dusted his hair and boots. He looked exhausted, guilty. "Mara," he began, pacing. "I need to tell you something, and you're going to hate it." "Try me," I said, folding my arms. He rubbed his neck. "Last night, after you left that group text unread, Bianca told everyone you weren't coming. She spun it like you'd chosen not to because of your shop. She said you were too busy, too tired, that you'd rather host strangers than family. And they believed her. Mom, Dad, everyone. That's why they laughed when your name came up. They thought you were playing martyr, like you didn't even want to be there." My breath caught. "She lied." "She lied," he confirmed. His eyes softened. "I tried to defend you, Mara. I really did. But she's got this power over them. You know, she does. She turns everything into a story where she's the hero. And they eat it up." I slammed my palm against the counter, making him flinch. "She's not the hero. She's the thief." He frowned. "Thief." I showed him the box. The letters. The deed. His mouth fell open. "Holy Mara, this is huge. She can't know. If Bianca finds out, she'll claim it," I finished. "Like she claimed Christmas. Like she claimed the platter." We sat in silence, the weight of it pressing on us. Finally, Nico leaned forward. "What are you going to do?" I looked at the brass key, at Nona's words. "Never let them take this from you." "What I should have done from the beginning," I said. "I'm going to show them. Not just words. Proof. Let them see what Nona really wanted. Let them choke on the truth." The opportunity came faster than I expected. That evening, Bianca texted again. "Bianca, brunch tomorrow. Thought we could do a little post-Christmas unwind? Just family." I almost laughed. Just family. The words burned. But instead of declining, I typed, "I'll be there," because now I had the truth. Now I had something she couldn't curate away. As I lay in bed that night, the box beside me, I thought of Nona, of her laugh, her recipes, the way she pressed love into dough with her knuckles. And I swore silently into the dark. Tomorrow, they will see me. Tomorrow, they will know. I walked to Bianca's house on December 27th with the wooden box tucked into my bag, its weight pulling against my shoulder like a stone of truth. Snow fell in a lazy drift, softening the sharp edges of the street, but nothing could soften the blade I carried inside me. Bianca's home glittered as always. Frosted garlands on the door, crystal ornaments twinkling in the front window, a wreath so perfectly circular it looked machine-made. I knocked once, and the door opened almost immediately. "There she is," Bianca said, her voice syrupy and bright, as if nothing had happened. She was draped in another white sweater, her hair coiled perfectly, her smile rehearsed. "Merry well, belated Merry Christmas." "Merry," I said flatly, brushing snow from my boots before stepping inside. The house was warm, filled with the smell of cinnamon rolls and fresh coffee. The family was gathered around the table again, Mom. Dad, Aunt Regina, Cousin Liv, even Nico, who looked like he'd barely slept. "Oh, Mara, darling," Mom said, rising to kiss my cheek. "We're so glad you came. You must be exhausted after all your little shop activities." Little shop activities. My jaw clenched. "I'm managing," I said. Dad handed me a mug of coffee, his smile strained. "Sit down, sweetheart." We were just about to toast. I sat at the far end of the table, the box heavy at my feet. Bianca stood at the head, beaming like a queen before her court. Well, she began lifting her mimosa. I think we can all agree this was one of our best Christmases yet. Elegant, harmonious, intimate, empty, I cut in. The room froze. Every head turned toward me. Empty. Bianca echoed, her smile twitching. "Yes." I leaned forward, my voice steady. "You left an empty chair at your table, Bianca?" "My chair. You told everyone I didn't want to come. That I was too busy, too tired, that I chose strangers over family." Mom's eyes widened. "That's what she said, Mara. That you didn't want, she lied." My voice cracked like a whip. "She excluded me. On purpose. And you all believed her. You laughed about it. You mocked me. You sat around that table eating store-bought desserts off Nona's platter while the one person Nona trusted with her recipes sat alone in her shop. The room went silent, the air thick with tension. Bianca's face stiffened, her voice sugar-coated but trembling at the edges. "Mara, you're being dramatic, don't?" I slammed my palm on the table. "Don't call me dramatic. This isn't drama. This is truth." I bent down, pulled the wooden box onto the table, and opened it. The paper spilled out the letters, the recipes, the deed. Everyone leaned in. "These are Nona's words," I said, my voice low but fierce. I unfolded the first letter and read aloud. "For Mara, who knows the difference between feeding and impressing." Gasps broke around the table. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. Dad shifted uncomfortably. "This," I continued, holding up the deed, "is land Nona bought. For a bakery? Or me? Not for Bianca's dinner parties. Not for Mom's image. For me, because she saw what you all refused to see. That I carry her legacy." Nico's eyes shone, pride and relief mingled. "Tell them, Mara," he whispered. Bianca's face was crimson now, her composure cracking. This is absurd. A box hidden in a wall. Anyone could have planted these papers. You can't expect us to believe her handwriting," Aunt Regina interrupted, picking up one of the letters. "I'd know it anywhere. These are real." Bianca sputtered. "Even if they are, it doesn't mean—" "It means," I cut her off, "that Nona knew what you'd do. She knew you'd turn Christmas into a performance, that you'd starve us of love while stuffing us with appearances. That's why she hid this. Because she didn't trust you." Bianca's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Dad finally spoke, his voice low and heavy. "Is this true, Mara? She left this for you?" "Yes." My voice trembled, but I held my chin high. "And she left me a message: never let them take this from you. I intend to honor that." Mom looked stricken, her eyes darting between us. "We didn't know," she whispered. "We thought—" "Bianca told us." I rose to my feet, my voice ringing out. "You thought wrong. You chose the curated story over me. But I'm done begging for a seat at your table. I've built my own. And people came. They filled my shop, laughed, ate, shared, belonged. Without rules, without exclusions. That is what Christmas should be. That is what Nona wanted." The silence was thunderous. Bianca slammed her glass down, shattering it against the table. "You think you're so noble, Mara, with your little cafe and your soups? But you'll never have what I have. Respect, elegance, control." I stepped closer, my voice a whisper sharp enough to cut. "You're right. I don't want what you have. I want something real. And last night, in my little cafe, I had it. While you sat here polishing emptiness." Bianca's face contorted with fury, but she had no words left. Mom finally reached across the table, her hand trembling as it touched mine. "Mara, I'm sorry. We failed you. We failed Nona. We should have seen." I looked at her hand, then back at her eyes. For the first time in years, I saw real regret there. Nico pushed back his chair and stood beside me. I know where I belong, he said firmly. With Mara. With a legacy that actually means something. Aunt Regina nodded slowly. Me too. Bianca's chair scraped sharply as she stood, her voice breaking. Fine, go run to her. But don't come crawling back when her little soup kitchen crumbles. I'm done. She stormed from the room, her footsteps echoing down the hall. The rest of us sat in silence. The spell had broken. The truth hung heavy in the air, undeniable. I gathered the papers back into the box, holding it close. This isn't just about soup or bread, I said softly. This is about remembering who we are, who Nona taught us to be. And for once, no one argued. The silence after Bianca stormed out was unlike anything I had ever felt in that house. It wasn't the brittle, polite silence of family dinners where everyone chewed tension along with their food. No, it was raw, unvarnished. Like the air after a thunderstorm, charged and heavy, but somehow cleansing. I stood with the wooden box in my hands, my knuckles white, my breath shallow. It felt as if I had opened not just a lid, but a vault one where every unspoken truth, every years-long bruise had been locked away. Now it was all out in the open, shimmering and undeniable. Dad was the first to move. He rubbed his temples, staring down at the shattered glass in front of Bianca's empty chair. We should have seen, he murmured, almost to himself. All these years, we let her dictate, control, and we mistook it for leadership. Mom sat very still, her hands folded like she was in church. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. I told myself I was protecting the family, she said in a faint voice, keeping things harmonious. But really, I was protecting Bianca's vision of things. Not the truth. I wanted to be angry still. I wanted to let my fury burn a hole through them, to make them feel the humiliation they had made me carry for so long. But standing there with Nona's words still ringing in my ears, I realized something. They already did feel it. I could see the shame in their faces, the regret in their posture. And that was a kind of justice, too. Nico placed a hand on my shoulder, his grip warm and steady. You don't have to carry this alone anymore, Mara. I'm with you always. I swallowed hard, my eyes stinging. For so long I had felt like the stray, like I was the outsider peering through the window at my own family's life. But now in this moment I realized something had shifted. I wasn't outside anymore. I was at the center, the keeper of our true inheritance. Nona gave me this, I said softly, holding up the box because she knew I'd understand. And because she wanted me to share it with anyone who's willing to receive it, not hoard it, not parade it, but live it. Mom's eyes welled with tears. She reached for me, hesitated, then finally let her hand rest on mine. Forgive me, she whispered, for believing the curated version instead of the real one. For silencing you with that awful word, dramatic. You were never dramatic, Mara. You were alive, and I tried to make you smaller. Her voice cracked, and for the first time in my life, I saw my mother not as a judge, but as a flawed woman aching under the weight of her choices. I took a shaky breath. I can't forget what happened. Not yet, but I can. Start forgiving. Because Nona wouldn't want me to carry this bitterness forever. She squeezed my hand. Thank you, she whispered. Dad cleared his throat, his voice rough. If that land deed is real, Mara, then it's yours. We won't contest it. You've proven you're the rightful heir to her vision. And more than that, too, you've already lived it. That open house dinner. That's exactly what Sophia would have done. Hearing him say that broke something open inside me. A knot of doubt I had carried for years began to unravel. Aunt Regina leaned forward, her voice gentle. You know, Mara, not everyone can do what you did. It takes courage to turn hurt into hospitality. I think you saved Christmas for a lot of people last night, even if your family didn't notice right away. I smiled faintly. I didn't save Christmas. I just remembered what it's supposed to be. The days that followed weren't easy. Bianca refused to speak to me. She posted glossy photos online of her perfect Christmas. Each one captioned with words about elegance, family, and harmony, curated lies for strangers to admire. But behind the curtain, the family began to shift. Dad came to the shop one morning, sitting quietly at a corner table while I brewed coffee. When I brought him a cup, he said, "I miss your grandmother. But when I sit here, I feel her. You've made this place sacred, Mara." Mom began helping on Saturdays, fussing over displays and greeting customers. At first, I bristled-eyed, didn't want her turning my shop into another showroom. But slowly, I saw her soften. She started asking customers their names, their stories. She laughed more. Sometimes, when she thought I wasn't looking, she'd take out Nona's recipe cards and trace the handwriting with her fingers. And Nick, my sweet, steadfast brother, became my right hand. He fixed shelves, strung up lights, played guitar in the corner when the cafe was busy. He called it Team Mara. And for once, I didn't deflect the affection. I let it warm me. Word spread about the Christmas Eve dinner. People who had come told their friends, who told theirs. By New Year's, the shop was bustling in a way it never had before. People didn't just come for books or coffee anymore. They came for belonging, for warmth. One evening in January, after the last customer had left, I sat alone with the box again. I unfolded Nona's letter, the one that had changed everything. "Never let them take this from you." I whispered into the empty shop, "I won't." I thought of Bianca still clinging to her illusions, her perfectly set tables with no soul behind them. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity, because she would never know the joy of true connection, of messy laughter, of food that tasted like love instead of presentation. I thought of my parents, humbled but trying, of Nico, loyal and loving, of the strangers who had become family in my little cafe that Christmas Eve. And I realized something. I hadn't lost my family. I had redefined it. Christmas had always been, in our house, a test stage where we performed perfection for one another. But this year taught me the truth. Family isn't the people who hand you a seat at their table because you fit their vision. Family is the people who follow you when you walk away from that table and set your own. I wasn't invited to Christmas dinner, but in the end, everyone who mattered followed me. Not because of obligation or blood or appearances, but because love pulled them there. And that, I realized, was the greatest inheritance Nona could have left me. I locked the box again, placed the brass key back inside, and tucked it on the highest shelf in my shop, not hidden away this time, but waiting, like a beacon. A reminder that when now feels like not enough, I have the power to make it more. I wiped down the counter, turned off the lights, and whispered into the stillness. Tomorrow, we feed whoever comes, because that is how you heal betrayal. That is how you win against humiliation. And that is how you honor love, by making more of it. And that's how I turn my pain into power. And my humiliation into justice. If this story hit home for you, don't leave just yet. Go ahead and hit that like button so more people can discover stories of truth, betrayal, and redemption. And if you've ever felt left out or had to build your own table like I did, share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and your stories matter here. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you won't miss the next chapter of family drama, betrayal, and sweet, sweet revenge. Because remember, sometimes the best revenge is simply living your truth louder.